it's Asheerah, and welcome back to another video. So this was requested by my admin Emma to make a little tips and tricks video, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. Now, disclaimer, this video will not, and I repeat, it will not be me showing you how I shade my coats, or exactly down to the T how I make my coats. One, it's too long, and two, everyone makes their coats differently, and it's all up to each individual person on how they like to shade their coats, make their lighting, do dapples, do markings, and all like that. I'm just here to show you a few things that you might not know about Blockbench that has helped me a lot in making my coats, and maybe make it easier, quicker, and maybe you can learn more about using them because they've helped me a lot. Now, the very first thing I have to say before I even get into anything with this coat is the fact that my number one tip to tell people is to create your own style and figure it out. Because we have so many creators, you can see that every single one has something different going on. You have some like Lisssa and Zilwide who make more realistic coats. You have others like me and Scary Dreams who do a combination of SWEM and realistic. And then you have others like Andrea who tends to make coats that look exactly like they came from SWEM themselves. So it's very important to find out what you like and to get into Blockbench and just experiment and take your time and allow yourself to improve within a course of a few months. It will not take a day that you become amazed at your own creations, and you might like them already, but you will improve over time the more you learn about what you like and what you don't like. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is going to be references. So if you didn't know that in Blockbench, you can put references in this little area here, and for this code where I made it so quick, I actually did use a reference. So if you right click, you can do add reference image, and you can get an image straight from your pictures or downloads, wherever it may be, and it will pop up on Blockbench. Like here, I just put this in. You can put it wherever you want. You can make it how big you want. And there it is. Now, whenever you're picking a reference, I will say that if you're having issues with shading and making your coats look bland, I do recommend looking at realistic horse pictures. So like here, if I'm thinking of making a grula like this, I will find a real horse picture of a grula, and by doing this and putting it as a reference, you can click the color picker and click any color you want. And it helps a lot because if you pick from places like DeviantArt or Pinterest, just very basically colored line artwork of horses, they tend to be very flat with their coloring. And that might not be what you need in order to improve. You may need pictures like a real horse to show you that horses are multiple different colors. There is not one color that is the same on this horse. You might think so, but you go color picking and yeah, nothing is the same. So that would be my second tip on references. Pick a realistic horse. And what I tend to do is I will have a horse for color, and then I'll have a separate reference picture for markings. Now, the third tip that I use almost every single time I make a coat is shading and lighting layers. Now, the thing about shading and lighting layers is that not everyone uses them. However, SWEM does have their own official shading and lighting layer, which you can get on their Discord. You do have to provide credits if you use it and publish it anywhere, as it is their creation. However, I have made my own, like right here, a lighting and a shading layer, and I tend to put these on my coats when, I just want them to look consistent amongst each other. I actually recently just made these ones, and I just noticed I have an extra part there, so I might as well just color that in. Nice. So, how shading layers work is that this is the dark shading. This is the places that are going to be darker. So, like the stomach. The stomach is often darker, under the neck is often darker. And this is where, again, a realistic picture of a horse can help you out a lot because horses tend to have consistent shading and lighting, and you can figure out which kind you would like. Like you can see on this horse, the shading, well, not the shading, the lighting goes like this. and this, and this. Shading is like here in the muscle, the neck, hindquarters a little bit. You can make it however you want to, and it can be unique to you. So for the lighting, it will be a black coat. For shading, a white coat, and most people tend to use black, but I like to use brown on mine. And a lot of people like to use white for their lighting. I like to use yellow. So with this horse, let me show you how I put it on. So when you click the shading layer, you will do up here, right click, copy. Now with this, you have to make sure that layers are enabled. When they are, you go back to the UV, click paste into new layer, and you do this for both. Now, what happens if you go here and you try to paste it? Well, you can't really do it. For lighting, at blend mode right here, you will set it to screen. For the shading, you put it on multiply, and it looks like this. And this is where you can mess with the opacity and figure out where you want it to be. Because obviously, on different coats, you don't want it to be as dark as others. So I'll just set it like that for now. Once again, if you want to make your own layer, it's quite simple. But before you do so, here's another tip. Lock Alpha Channel makes it so that if you click in this UV, well, it's kind of messing up, so I'll do here. See, without that enabled, you have everything showing up when you do here. And even when you go to do this, you will have things like the pasture blanket and the armor showing up. Alpha Lock takes that away, so when you do click in the UV, you can color the entire coat without having to individually go through and do this. I do that a lot, especially for the mane and tail. The other is the mirror painting. Now, for standard coats like bays or chestnuts, it's really nice to have symmetrical going on both sides. That is what mirror painting does. And for shading layers, it's even better too, because say I have this here. Well, I don't want to go through the trouble of trying to make it look the exact same on the other side. Oh, it's already there. How nice. And then for lighting, you do the same thing, but with a black coat and white on top. And if you do that, well, then you'll end up getting something like this. So I've had people also ask me about dapples and markings. And this is going to be my next trick on it. Because you can add layers, I often duplicate one of these and put another screen layer on, mark it with black, and very easily you can make dapples by doing this. So usually I tend to make them in this way, or I'll put them in random areas. It's just however I'm feeling, and if I am too lazy, I'll just place them wherever. But say like that. Then you can lower the opacity to however you want. Now, I often do tend to use this color, and I'm actually going to go in a bit lighter with this. And I'm just going to be a bit quick with it and do like this, as dapples tend to be close to each other. Once again, lower the opacity. Look at that. You got dapples. You can even put it underneath that, and it just makes it look a little bit more natural. Once again, you can do the same thing with markings. Now, usually how I do markings, I always make it off-white, as no horse's markings is ever pure white. Let alone most white horses are like 99% of the time dirty. But for big markings like paint and Appaloosa, I tend to put my brush on softness 100, and I'll outline it before anything. Now, some people don't like to use the softness. They like to have a lower softness, and that's okay. I like putting mine high. You don't have to do that. It's all up to your own style preference. Okay, I have this marking colored in. Now, why do I like using layers so much for this? Because if I decide that I don't want markings on this horse at all, instead of it being attached to this base coat, I can just simply get rid of the layer and it's not there anymore. Or say, I don't like the shape, I want to fix it up a little bit. I can just go through with the black brush and make the marking look completely different. And that's really how I make a lot of my markings, is just a bunch of going through and continuously doing this until I like how it looks. The other trick that I am going to mention as well, and probably going to be my last one, is animations. Actually, you know what? Lie. Second to last, animations. So with animations, the reason they're so important is because you need to do animation checks on your coats. If you want them to be high quality and people are going to like them even more, you want to make sure that they're properly colored in. Now, some creators like Scary Dream, as I have here, has an animation check model, and you can kind of see all the places that you don't usually see that is uncolored. But in certain animations, like the one I tend to use a lot for animation checking, in the gallop, you can see there's this area in between the shoulders that's completely not colored in. And that will look very odd in game when somebody's using it. On top of that, with this, you also have areas within the shoulders that you normally don't see until a horse gets into an animation. So for that, I do tend to use the gallop a lot for those specific areas. I also tend to use the fatal bite, and the reason for this is for the mouth, so I can put teeth and the tongue in, and then the piaffe, because there is these areas in between the legs that often get missed by a lot of people. On top of that, if you have any white markings on your feet, if you do it in the stand idle, you don't get that underneath colored in, which then will look odd in multiple animations. And then you also have the connection headpiece that obviously right now does not look the same to the colors around it. So it's very important to use animations as your friend because they help you figure out what you're doing wrong with your horse coats and to make them look a lot better. Alternatively, now my actual final tip would be to get the swim coats in your documents or somewhere on your computer because it's so much easier. If you have issues with the naming, like here, Hurricane Aerosint, or I don't even know how to pronounce that, I'm not going to try again. You can actually get the coats into a folder, and that's how I get so easily. If I'm going to make a bay, I know what horses I'm going to use, and I can simply go into the coats folder, put it down, and not have to worry about naming it incorrectly, having a capitalization anywhere. It's very easy for me to then save the coat when I'm done, put it in a resource, and put it into game. And this is actually relatively simple if you get the model through the files like most people do. Then you're going to go to SWEM, Assets, Textures, Entity, Horse, Coats. And within the coats folder, you also have full coats, so you can even make coats for foals if you want to. Now, whenever you're making a coat into Community Pack, I do recommend using Trees helper with it because that's what I use. It makes it 10 times easier for you to turn your coat into a Community Pack coat. And for 1.20, I much prefer using Community over Resource. So, that's all my tips and tricks that I have so far for this video. If you have any more that I did not mention, please, for the love of God, put them in the comments. Because the reason people are going to watch this video is so that they can have an easier and better time at improving quicker with their coats. And so, if I missed anything and you have your own tip and trick, put it in the comments so that somebody could see and maybe get some help. As well, please like the video, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.